Hey lovelies! So as far as I'm concerned, nothing makes a better brunch dish than quiche. I absolutely love it. You know, in my house, quiche is actually one of the most beloved things. It's the thing my fiance Greg is always asking for. So today I'm gonna show you 3 awesome ways to prepare it that I think you're going to love. Now, just to be clear, in all of these recipes, I am actually cheating with a store-bought pie crust. If you wanna make your own pie crust from scratch, you can go right ahead. These are actually all about the fillings anyways, so it's fun. To make these extra pretty, instead of just a traditional pie plate, I am going to be pressing my pie crust into one of these handy dandy tart pans that has a removable bottom. These things are worth their weight in gold. If you don't have one at home, not to worry, I'll link a couple options in the description box below. You can take a look for them there. All you need to do is press your pie crust into your pan and then remove the additional dough from around the edges, and you are ready to start making some quiche. First up, we are making a bacon cheddar ranch quiche. And I know that you know that those flavors together simply cannot be bad. I'm gonna get started by frying up some bacon in a nice hot skillet. So I've got my skillet over medium-high heat. I've chopped my bacon pretty finely and I'm just going to cook it until it's nice and crisp. Once my bacon is cooked through, I'm going to remove it using a slotted spatula, and I'm also going to remove all but 1 tablespoon of the bacon fat from the pan because I'm actually going to use it to fry up my broccoli. You can see I have cut my broccoli florets pretty small, and I'm not gonna cook them for very long. This is just a really clever way to impart some of that bacon flavor over to the broccoli and help it get a little better cooked before we start to construct our quiche. Once they're nice and bright green, we're going to remove them from the pan and set them aside while I turn my attention to the egg mixture in my quiche, which is basically just a combination of eggs and milk. I like using 4 eggs in my quiche. Sometimes you need a little more, sometimes you need a little less. It really depends on how much filling you're working with. You always have the option to use milk in this recipe, but I am a big fan of using half and half instead. I find it makes for a very rich, very creamy quiche. And come on, isn't that the way the French intended quiche to be? I'm going to mix that all up really, really well, and then I'll take this chance to season it up with some salt and some pepper. Once my egg mixture is ready, I'm going to add even more flavor. In this case, I am doing that with some ranch seasoning. Now, you can totally use the store-bought kind, that's fine. Usually you find it in little packets, or you can try your hand at homemade. I have a great recipe for it on the channel. I will link it in the description box below. We'll whisk that all together, and now we are ready to assemble our quiche. We'll start by putting our broccoli down in a single layer in our tart pan. Next, I'm going to pile in my bacon. Then I'll pour over my egg mixture. You wanna make sure not to overfill your pan because of course eggs sort of expand when they cook and you don't want it to overflow. That is always bad news, and to be honest, makes a huge mess in your oven. Don't say I didn't warn you. And at this point, all that's left to do is just to load on the cheddar cheese, because broccoli, bacon, and cheddar were all just meant to be together, am I right? And then we will get this beauty in a preheated oven at 375 degrees for between 30 and 40 minutes, or until that egg mixture is completely set and your pie crust is nice and golden. When it comes out, I don't need to tell you, you basically have brunch perfection on your hands. This is a dish your guests are going to feel real good about, so you should definitely consider making 2 or 3. My next quiche is a great vegetarian option. It is inspired by all of the delicious flavors of a Greek dish called Spinach Feta Pie. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically spinach and feta pie, so you know it can't be bad, but I'm taking all of those flavors and putting them in a quiche. I like to think it's a fairly inspired idea, if I do say so myself. This one starts once again with a skillet heating up over medium-high heat. To that, I'm going to add some butter, and then once that butter's melted, I've got some finely diced onion going into the skillet. Because the onion is nice and finely diced, it's only going to take 2 or 3 minutes for it to start to soften up and get translucent. That's when you know it is time to add your garlic to the pan. Now, as you guys know, I do love me some garlic. And of course, if it's Greek cooking, it must involve some garlic. Once that garlic is nice and fragrant, it is time to add our spinach to the pan. We're going to cook the spinach down until it begins to wilt and take on the flavor of that onion and that garlic. Once our spinach has started to wilt down, which only takes about a minute or two, we are going to add in some fresh dill. Now, fresh dill is actually really classic in traditional Greek cooking, and trust me when I tell you, you will totally miss it in this recipe. At this point, I'm just going to turn my heat off completely, and then I'm simply going to divide this mixture evenly between my 4 quiche shells. Quiche shells. Quiche shells. She sells quiche shells by the kitchen door. So in this case, I am using these adorable individual tart shells. They're very similar. They have a removable bottom, and I've just pressed my pie crust into the base of each. And now I am just going to divide my spinach filling evenly into each of them. Then I'm going to fill them with my egg mixture, top them all off with a heaping helping of nice salty crumbled feta and another sprinkle of fresh dill. Looks delicious already, team. Let's get these into the oven. Once again, we're cooking them at 375 for about 25 minutes. You'll want to keep a really good eye on them because of course they're smaller, so they'll cook more quickly and you do not want them to burn. That is not delicious. When they come out of the oven, they are beautiful, a little golden on top, really fresh tasting, and absolutely ready to be devoured. I always recommend making a second batch because they also double as the perfect lunch option. So they're really great as a make-ahead meal. Last but not least, I've got a classic quiche that is slightly more sophisticated, if you will. It's actually a smoked salmon quiche, and I like to take it right over the top by adding some dollops of cream cheese to the top. Doesn't that sound pretty delicious? For this, we are actually going to do something a little different. I'm actually just going to use a pastry brush to spread this mustard all over the inside of my pie crust. I know it might sound a bit strange, but it is actually an amazing way to impart even more great flavor into your quiche. And I am all about maximizing flavor. Next, I'm going to pile in my chopped smoked salmon, which I love and just can't get enough of. I'm also going to be adding some asparagus to this. You can see that I have finely chopped my asparagus because it has to do all of its cooking in the oven. I'm not gonna pre-cook it, so we wanna make sure that it's nice and finely chopped. Once we've got our smoked salmon and our asparagus arranged in our pie shell, we can go ahead and add some fresh chives to this. And then, like I said, I love adding a few dollops of cream cheese. It gets really melty and beautiful and delicious. Now I once again have my egg mixture all mixed up, and I am just going to pour it all over so that it spreads out and every square inch is covered in eggy goodness. And then I will top this all off with a little bit of fresh dill because dill and smoked salmon are a match made in heaven. We'll get this beauty into the oven once again at 375 for between 30 and 40 minutes, and holy smokes, guys. Or should I say, holy smoked salmon, guys. This stuff is really delicious. I highly recommend you make it for a crowd because I am a big fan. I hope you'll give all 3 of these tasty ideas a try, and if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Snapchat me a photo because I always love seeing your kitchen creations. Keep in mind the full recipes are in the description box as always, so you can take a look for them there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from. Somebody is really gonna love you if you make these for Easter.